So I'd like to welcome everyone to Mist Harlem for the summit on, or actually the session, the talk. I like to call it a town hall on Gigabit Harlem, right? We're talking about bringing a high-speed gigabit into Harlem and what it can mean for people like you, people like me, people who work in Harlem, people who are hiring people in Harlem, for people like tech entrepreneurs and people who support tech entrepreneurs, what it can mean for the community. So I am here to actually introduce and bring our host committee members up. So people who are on our host committee, if you could start making your way towards the mic, but I'm gonna call on first Ms. Regina Smith, if you could come up and say a few words, one of our host committee members from the Harlem Business Alliance, if you could say a few words for us.
Good evening, everyone. Regina Smith, Executive Director, Harlem Business Alliance. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We hope to have a very engaging discussion. A lot needs to be done in the area of technology, particularly here in the Harlem community, and we hope that you will be instrumental in helping us to take the Harlem community to another level. Thank you very much.
And do I see anybody from Incubate NYC, from Black Creatives? Anybody come on down, because if you're not here, they did a great job of helping us promote the event. I would love to give you your opportunity to say a few words, but if you don't come down Mike Street, everybody out at the beach or something, what's going on? So, and then I think the last host committee member was from my company. She's not here, so I'm speaking on her behalf. So we were a part of the host committee, the Round the Way app. So how many people have heard of Round the Way? Few people. So what Around the Way is, it's a mobile app. It allows you to find the closest African-American business to your current location. So if you search for Around the Way on the App Store, download it, and it's about supporting African-American owned businesses. But coming soon, for ladies, specifically for ladies, we have a new app coming out called Wendy, which stands for Women's Entrepreneurial National Directory. So it's about girl power. It's about supporting businesses owned by women, so that'll be coming out soon. I'll communicate with you, but for right now, download Around the Way, and we're happy to be a part of this. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to Mr. Clayton Banks. Give it a round of applause, and he can take it a step further for us. Thank you, sir.
Testing one. Okay, thank you, Eric. Eric has been at all of the Silicon Harlems. He's one of the founders of this whole thing, and certainly he's been a great partner. So Bruce, come on up here with me. Bruce and I have had this vision for a long time. We knew that Harlem was full of great technologists and people that are interested in technology. And we finally figured that if we got people together around drinks and food, there might be a way to actually galvanize an initiative. And tonight is sort of that launch of that initiative, which we call Gigabit Harlem. And the reason why we came up with that name was we know that to transform this community, it's going to require a lot of work. But the foundation of that is broadband. And we think that that broadband will, in fact, transform education, jobs, startup businesses, health, all crime, everything that makes a community strong. So I'm going to have Bruce say a few welcome words, and you're going to turn it back over to me, and we'll get the panel going.
Thanks, Clayton. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here to Miami Studios. And I think this is a fitting place for us to be here at this moment in time having this discussion. This happens to be a very sophisticated venue. It's in the Kalahari, which is actually a LEED Gold building. It is part of a smart and green corridor of buildings that Full Spectrum, under the leadership of Carlton Brown and Walter Edwards, have built. And actually, this is the first FiOS drop on 1/16th, thanks to this gentleman, thanks to a partnership that we've had with Verizon. Also, in this space, you have one of the most sophisticated internet networks in the city, if not the country. We basically have very high-speed fiber optics coming in, separate from the building, and then we basically augment it with super Wi-Fi antennae here, so everyone can be on the Wi-Fi, you can be downloading apps, you can be tweeting, we do all the kind of stuff that you do with social media simultaneously, to as well participating in the program. And sort of with that, what I like to do is just hand it back to Clayton. But the idea is that here we are together, and we're going to platform Harlem, working with all the kinds of relevant partners that want to support what we're doing to basically make sure that we achieve a first-generation internet that transforms life here in Harlem as we know it. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you further during the panel discussion.
Thank you, Bruce. Everybody loves Bruce. I just had a couple of quick thank yous before I introduce the panel. You heard Eric talk about the host committee. They really are a treasure. There's a lot more than Eric, myself, and Bruce. And so I won't name everyone, but I will say thank you. Friends and family, thank you. All the additional volunteers, thank you. If you haven't had any of the chicken wings tonight, I'm recommending them highly. I'm certain you can tell I know my food. So Donald Coaxum is our caterer tonight. And then, of course, the missed folks. Bruce mentioned Carlton and Walter, but Kareem is here, and Rachel is in the back, and her crew. So we're very thankful to have their support for tonight. And I got a lot of friends in the audience. I won't name you all, but I think I saw my golf buddy walk in late. And we golfed in a tournament yesterday, and he was our ringer. But Craig's, I know you're here. There you are. Okay. And Donald McMichael's here, and a bunch of other people. Yeah, I'm going to call out some names here. Dallas is here from Pittsburgh. Dallas, raise your hand. All the way from Pittsburgh, came in to visit us. So let me turn it over to the panel and work with them a little bit. But a major part of tonight is your voices. Not only does Congressman Rangel want to hear your voices, but Inez Dixon, I'm sorry, I always call it Dixon, Dickens, as well as your community in general. Is Simeon here?
I am here.
Oh, I have to introduce Simeon Banister, who is the Chief of Staff of Inez Dickens. And a large part of tonight was due to Simeon's vision. So we're very, very happy to have him bring some remarks.
Thank you so much, Clayton. I really appreciate it, Bruce, and to the panelists. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming to this meetup tonight. We are excited about the prospects for what a night like this potentially means. About a couple of months ago, I guess I met up with Bruce first, and through a friend of mine, and had started to have a conversation about the future of Harlem, right, and the future of Northern Manhattan, kind of more broadly speaking. And we had been talking in our office with Councilmember Dickens, who certainly I bring greetings for tonight, who represents the 9th Council District, which is Central Harlem. It used to actually be Harlem in the Upper West Side, but redistricting happens now at Central Harlem. And so we had been talking in our office about what the future of this community looks like, right? What do we do, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 and 20 years from now? How do we start thinking about long-term vision beyond just what happens in the next election cycle, but further down the tunnel of time? And one of the things that emerged from that discussion was that it was going to be very important to think about the technological enterprise that currently exists in Harlem and what we could do to kind of stoke those flames. And so that conversation then led to a conversation with Bruce and then a conversation with Clayton about what we could do, particularly folks that sit in seats like the one that I sit in, working for a member of the city council who's currently in leadership in the city council. What could we do to bring a little bit of hustle behind, a little bit of muscle behind the efforts that had already been, really had been worked on for a very long time? I think the guys told me 20, 30 years that they had been doing a lot of this kind of work before anybody was paying attention to it. And so 3 things really popped out to me about this effort. The first is that government is at its best, in my estimation, when we do the work to create the right environment for industry to thrive, right? Government is at its best when we lay the groundwork, we put the shoulder to the wheel, we clear the hurdles, we reduce the regulations that would be onerous, we do what is necessary to ensure that we get the best possible situation for industry to be able to thrive, right? So that was one of the first insights. The second insight was that for our economic sustainability in Harlem, we had to think really critically about what industries made sense for us today, right? So if we look at Harlem now, there's restaurants that we see burgeoning, and we see all kinds of interesting growth. I see Regina from Harlem Business Alliance has really done so much work to make sure that we get to the place where we are today. And in order for us to be able to sustain that over the long term, right, we've got to think about what core industries make sense in this day and time, right? There are no big factories that we're going to be opening down the street from here, right? So we've got to think about industry that makes sense. And to me, technology just seems to make a lot of sense, right? And there are a number of reasons for that. And then the third thing is, that was perhaps not much of a surprise to many of you, is that those of us that serve in public service, that work in public service, and for our elected officials that are in office, guess what? We don't know everything. And so because we don't know everything, and perhaps we don't know quite a bit, we also realized that in order for us to be able to do this kind of work, we needed to actually go to the people that have the information, that have the knowledge. So I said, guys, what we wanted to do was to have this conversation. We want to walk away with some sense of what it is, of what's necessary to create the right environment for technology to grow in Harlem. And I'm interested in some of the granular details, right? We want to know, if it's a question of bandwidth, then let's get that. If it's a question of, a favorable tax environment, let's do that. If it's a question of utility costs and managing that, let's do that. If it's a question of identifying an educated and talented workforce, let's think about how we do that, right? But we want to hear from you all the things that are necessary. So this is fertile ground for technology firms. And we're thinking across the spectrum, right? We're thinking small firms, we're thinking big firms, established firms, scrappy startups, the whole deal, to find Harlem an attractive place to tap down roots and to start thinking about doing real industry and real business here. And my sense of it is, and I definitely know I can speak for the council member on this, is that if we do this right and we do this smartly and we really all work together and remain engaged in this effort, that 10 years from now and 15 years from now and 20, and when I have a 4-month-old now, when he's, a big guy like me, right. That one day he'll look back and recognize that it was because of the work of the people in this room that we have a sustainable community. The last thing I'll say really quick, I did want to get this in, is that we also want to think about this on a multifaceted, full spectrum kind of perspective, right? So I want to think about this both in terms of the tech jobs that could potentially come and emerge from this, but also, we've got folks that, if their bandwidth has to come here, I don't know that much about it, but bandwidth has to come here, we got to lay wires. We got folks that can do that kind of work, right? We've got folks that can do all kinds of interesting things across the full spectrum of jobs, both from, blue collar all the way up to, very specified high technology jobs. We want to make sure that we bring the full spectrum here and that we do that kind of work. So with that, I will stop and I will say thank you all. Thank you to the panel for being here, and thank you guys for pulling this together.
Thanks, Simeon. Keep an eye on that man, right? Keep an eye on that man. Joe Miller, are you on?
Oh, he wasn't.
Do we have Joe Miller?
He got up.
Okay. Well, we're gonna keep it moving. And Joseph, when you join us again or hear us, we'll tap you in. But Joseph Miller is from the Joint Center down in D.C. He's joining us through a Google Hangout, and we're expecting Charlie Rangel as well a little bit later.
He's on your.
Okay, Joe. We'll catch you in a minute. So let me introduce our esteemed panel. It's a very great pleasure of mine to have the folks here that we have, because these are people that are making a difference right now, both in broadband as well as in overall communications, and these are the people we need to help shape the initiative, the thinking, and certainly some of the execution. So I'm gonna start at the end over there, and we're going to work our way through. They're going to introduce themselves and their titles and companies, and we'll get right into the questioning after that. Again, a lot of this is about you guys, so start thinking of your questions or even your comments, but keep them very short. All right, so go ahead.
Thanks, Clayton. Good evening. My name is Michelle Webb. I'm an Executive Director of Content Acquisition and Strategy at Verizon FiOS. I lead their multicultural content strategy, our local news and television offering strategy, as well as some of our capacity initiatives.
My name is Chris Levendos. Oh, sorry. My name is Chris Levendos. I'm an Executive Director of National Operations for Verizon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Clayton, and be part of this conversation. I am a native of Upper Manhattan. I was born in the Inwood section of Manhattan, and I spent my first 10 years with Verizon, both as a technician as well as a manager for Verizon here in the Harlem area. So I know it quite well. I know our infrastructure quite well here. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our service commitment to Harlem for the last 100 years, as well as, more importantly, what Verizon is doing to make Harlem relevant and the network that we provide, the network that we're building here in Harlem, relevant for the next 100 years. So happy to talk about that and share that with you and take your questions about the same subjects.
Also a great technologist. In a minute, I'm going to have him fix the AC for us.
Okay.
How you doing? Adam Katzenback, Carrot Creative, when I'm not dropping microphones. When Chris is speaking, I'm a managing director over at Carrot Creative, located in Brooklyn, New York. We're a new media full-service agency, and what that means is we help brands like Verizon bring their marketing needs to life on the internet. So anything you see on the internet, our company does. And we have a vested partnership with a community program called Digital Jumbo, which is the second biggest New York meetup, tech meetup rather, in New York City. So.
My name is Bruce Lincoln, and I'm one of the co-founders of Silicon Harlem, and I've been working in the area of bringing advanced technologies to underserved communities now going back to 1995 when I was at the Institute for Learning Technologies. And anyone who knows me, one of the key areas of my vision to where I become boring and repetitive is this idea of leapfrogging Harlem to where we have the next generation internet because of what that makes possible when it comes to looking at technology and innovativeness. My company is called the Urban Cyberspace Company, and we basically are a technology company that designs internet works for green buildings. So we did the internet design and installation for 1400 on 5th, which is at the corner, this building, the Kalahari, and this new venue called My Image Studios. And our main focus is how to deploy technology in such a way that what we start to do is create local jobs. So our newest initiative is focused on how we develop telework jobs by creating centers where people can be both employed and trained simultaneously over the internet.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. I am a little bit remiss. We have our sponsor here, so we have to acknowledge them because they are the money bags. You know? So Ryan, if you'll stand up for me. Come on over here, actually. This is Ryan from HarlemGarage. Give him a hand. Ryan, why don't you say just a couple quick words?
Good evening, everyone. For those that don't know what HarlemGarage is, HarlemGarage is a co-working space that's scheduled to open this fall. Actually, September 1st for co-working, August 1st for events. And essentially, if you're not familiar with the co-working model, co-working is where small businesses come to grow. You know, it's less of the overhead. You know, you don't need to go out and rent $1,200 space per month. You know, you can come collaborate with other small businesses. You know, if you're a textile company, you can collaborate with a lawyer. You might have a small question. Instead of calling somebody and having them take 2 days, you know, ask this lawyer right next to you. That's essentially what collaboration and co-working means, and that's what we're trying to do for Harlem. And this co-working space will be open on 118th Street, actually between Manhattan and Frederick Douglass. And like I said, it's going to be a event space as well as a co-working space. So if you have any questions, please contact me at ryan@harlemgarage.com, and I'll be here for the duration of the evening. And I'd just like to you know, congratulate Silicon Harlem on what they're doing doing for Harlem. You know, Harlem. I'm from the South, and Harlem is, you know, the beacon. You know, so we have to keep Harlem, you know, in the forefront of technology. You know, Harlem has to hold. So that's what it is. And like I said, if you're interested in co-working with us, ryan@harlemgarage.com.
Okay. I'll be looking for that extra check. So, Michelle, let's start out here. When it comes to technologies, but specifically when it comes to what we can do with technology, when you look at your career, especially what you're doing with Verizon FiOS, what do you look for in content? And what do you look for, you know, people who may have, you know, ideas around content? Like, how do you advise people?
Well, I wanted to add, I'm a child of Spanish Harlem too, and it's very important to me to make sure when we see progress, that progress comes to Harlem as well. One of the things we talked about is how challenging it is to make sure certain communities see the relevance of speed and why speed is important. It's hard to see certain communities don't even know what speed they have, so they purchase a package, a bundle of services, and think that's fine, and we try to upgrade them and say, get the next level of speed, and we still are struggling to get, especially multicultural communities, to understand that you deserve better, and we are providing better. Verizon just launched our quantum speeds, and we're trying to get those adopted in certain segments as well. And why speed is also important from the content perspective is when you're trying to get content launched, and you are a content creator, if you can deliver your content via IP or via broadband, that helps distributors like a Verizon, a Time Warner, a Bright House, a Comcast be able to talk to you, because we can actually talk about delivering you a different way, because customers are consuming content different ways, but we're also delivering content different ways. So we're using broadband differently than we had before. So usually content is delivered linearly through pipes in the ground and whatever, and satellite, but IP is becoming the next way that we deliver content. So what we're saying is that it's an enabler for different communities. One of the things that I do with the multicultural strategy is to be able to talk to different populations of people about ways to get their content. So even though it's delivered via IP, you will still see it on your television. So that's how speed is relevant. I've been trying to talk about speed to multicultural content creators.
Awesome. Chris, could you tell us a little bit what gigabit speed is? And there's some people that are arguing, and some of your competitors, in fact, that are saying it's not even about gigabit speed, that it's not really necessary. So I'm just curious, what is it, and why do we need it?
Well, gigabit speed is certainly a great amount of bandwidth when we use those terms to describe a certain volume of bandwidth. And a gigabit is a whole heck of a lot of bandwidth when we just think back a few years ago when many of us were dialing up into the internet. A lot of time has really not passed by where we've leapt past those kinds of speeds to where we are today, where we're challenging with the idea of gigabit speeds. So Verizon has been thinking about this for quite some time, and our commitment and our investment in Verizon FiOS is an effort to be future-proofing on the idea of speeds growing and the demand for speeds growing. And the future-proofing aspect is by building fiber optic networks and extending the fiber optic networks from the Verizon locations out to our customer locations, to apartment buildings, wiring apartment buildings, completely up right to the units, to small businesses, to large businesses, to community centers, and extending that fiber optic cabling system, because it's not yet commercially available, the equipment that can actually outperform the fiber optics. So today in the marketplace, Verizon delivers in the consumer space, the residential space, and small business. We sell a top speed of about 300 megabits. We're soon to raise that up, and we're prepared to go up to gigabit speed. Our network will support that, but we're monitoring the demand of our customers and the use of our customers to see where the marketplace is taking it. It's going to get there. It's not there today necessarily in the aggregate. That's why like I said, we're about 300 meg now. We're going to take it up a few speeds up. There's a lot of buzz in the marketplace about what Google is doing around the country with also building fiber optic networks in a couple of towns around the U.S. And we look at that as just affirming what we've already committed to do. That just certainly comments on what Verizon had already set out to do, knowing that you have to build end-to-end fiber optic networks to be able to future-proof yourself for these speeds. Because once you have the fiber optic cable in place, what you do over time is just change the equipment on the endpoints, because that fiber optic cabling will last our lifetimes. It's very unlikely that we'll outperform the fiber cable, but we'll certainly outperform the units that we use on the end of it today, and we'll keep evolving those. And then it's sort of less heavy lifting to change the endpoints. as long as we make the investments now in the cable infrastructure that we need for the next 100 years. And we're doing that today in Harlem. We're doing that all throughout the city of New York with Verizon's commitment to rewire this entire city from one end to the other. And that means all 5 boroughs, all neighborhoods, and going block by block and enabling this type of potential. So the ability to reach gigabit speeds once they become commonplace, that you could do them anywhere. You could do them from your apartment, you could do them from your small business, you could do it from a community location, and then it doesn't really matter your piece of real estate. You don't have to be on Fifth Avenue in the 50s. You can be here in Harlem, you can be on Fifth Avenue and 132nd Street and be able to get the same speeds, the same quality of network from, at least from a company like Verizon, because what we're building and what we're committing to is not beholden to a geography. We're committed to investing across this great city.
Bruce, why don't you pick up on that, from that, and talk a little bit about how we can make sure Harlem isn't last on that list to get that great speed moving and that great infrastructure in place, and what kind of sort of drivers, whether it's applications or such, that will help us, make sure we're on the forefront of that.
That was an excellent explanation of what gigabit means. And then I think within the context of how we would organize Harlem, I think that's sort of what we've started to do here. But it means that what we have to do is have, I think, an unusual, if you will, collaboration where not only are we working with the Verizon and with startups, but we also have to be working with companies that don't think of themselves as being technology companies, as well as working with Columbia and City College. So what we have to, I think, is form, this new consortium. I think Gigabit Harlem is the beginning of that with this conversation, but we also have to, in essence, aggregate the business sector here. And I mean the incumbent business sector, not the startup business sector, because a great deal of the businesses across 125th Street, they now want to get gigabit speed because they're starting to actually move from their older infrastructure, but what has happened is they've adopted new business practices, and now they're seeing the need for speed, as you talked about. But I think we need to sort of create, if you will, an achievable vision where everyone can see what's my trajectory to get to where I have this level of connectivity, but not simply connectivity, this level of ability to carry out my business within the context of an ecosystem.
Adam, can you pick up on, given your experience with so many different brands, and they're all starting to push the envelope, we're all watching these brands do so many different, types of advertisements, or, they're using social media to drive their product or drive their brand. If you could talk about how the brands are pushing, high-speed internet, how are they pushing? How are they demanding more? We're seeing, when a lot of us, when we were growing up, advertisers were advertisers and companies were companies. Now we're kind of seeing companies being advertisers and advertisers being everybody's advertisers.
Absolutely.
So what's going on with that?
So I think that the gigabit speed is an enabler, right? I think first and foremost that as long as it's there, it's the foundation for what things can be built on. And advertising is no longer a one-way communication. It's a two-way street. And it's often a dialogue, not a monologue that it used to be. So what we're seeing in our space is really, we're seeing brands wanting to distribute content to everybody. And they're creating niche content to appeal to everybody. And then there needs to be an audience that wants to see that, that's going to want to provide feedback, that's going to call for that demand of content. Now, depending on if they're consuming this content on a device or on a desktop or through a tablet is to be determined, but all of that needs speed. It needs to process all of the content that's being created and deliver it in a way that's going to provide the best possible service and the best possible guest service. Otherwise, you're going to have some pretty angry people on the line. So I think that over time, you're always going to see, as Chris said, the endpoints change, the way in which we are visualizing said content or speed. But really, if we lay the groundwork or enable communities, businesses, and consumers to use this speed, we don't know where it's going to go. Is it going to, talking about the community itself, how can we see schools and businesses leverage this in a way that we just don't know yet? Is it through a medical device company that's going to render content that's going to let someone see medical history in a way we've never seen it before? Device company that's going to render content that's going to let someone see medical history. We got an echo now.
Yeah, don't worry. Well, you know, it's amazing to me that there's still some sort of, I guess, regulation around how much bandwidth we all get. And there's a lot of filmmakers and video people in this audience. I see Warrington Hudlin is here, and Cheryl Hill. These are people that have made Hollywood films and TV shows and need that type of speed in order to deliver their sort of 21st century product, which isn't traditionally launched, which now is being launched online, a lot of products. So, Chris, if you can just talk about how do we push harder, so to speak, to get gigabit speed here, Upper Manhattan. I mean, I know you probably have a pretty thought-through plan, but we're really anxious.
Yeah, well, as I said before, right now in the marketplace, the top speed that we're offering is 300 megabits, which again is an incredible amount of bandwidth. And again, that's not specific to any geographic location. That is wherever we have built our fiber optic network and FiOS network, that level of speed is available to all. We're soon to ratchet that up to 500 meg in a short time, and then we're going to be taking it up to the gigabit level over time. But we're watching the demand, you know, force that ratcheting up. We're not looking at to take our products and our services up just for sort of, you know, gee whiz marketplace comments. So a lot of that happens in the marketplace where folks will say, oh, we'll give you a gigabit. But there, behind the scenes, it's a little bit of a shell game as to really what you're getting and the quality of what you're getting you can support on. So we look at the FiOS brand and the quality behind the FiOS brand and the commitment behind the brand, that what you subscribe and pay for to get from us is that you get that. So we work very hard that the quality of network supports that. So as we begin to take the speeds up and watching demand, again, it'll be ubiquitous. So wherever the network availability is, that same level of service offering will be about. So there's no, you know, we put a gigabit over here and we don't put it over there. As the network goes out, the quality of service offerings is everywhere.
We don't lay different speeds.
Certainly not, certainly not.
So this is
So as I said, so today in the marketplace we're at 300. So where we have built thus far today in Harlem, 300 is available. Over the next, for the remainder of 2013 into 2014, wherever we have not built the foundation of our fiber network, it will be. So whatever gaps we have left, we'll clear those up over the next year and a half.
But that's important.
Yeah,
It's
go
what
ahead.
you said earlier about demand. We follow the market. We're not doing things for. It's that I don't think most people. I mean, how many people know what your speed is right now? I mean, if the consumer doesn't, you do.
it's a room full of tech
but
people.
only like but only 4 people raise their hands. You know, so okay, 7.
No, a lot of people don't know what it is.
But
Well, a lot of
that's
people
the
know
point.
what it isn't.
They know what it
That's probably
isn't.
much more
But I don't
important.
think people know what and that's why it's important to say that we have the 300 in market. I don't think people don't even know that we already have that speed available to you. And are you taking advantage of the speeds that are here for you already?
Just to provide context of this discussion, is there any way you can give us a sense as to relative to other geographies in the city where Harlem?
That's what we just said.
Yeah,
So when you're talking about an specific technology, especially like what you're saying, because you are saying something that's not absolute.
Okay, all right. Before we get too far along here, and we're in New York, we know what the deal is, but let's give them a chance to answer one question at a time. We're going to turn it over to the audience because I see some real great minds that are thinking here. And this is not about FiOS. This is not about Verizon at all. So what we're talking about is empowering Harlem, right? So this is not about FiOS, or he's being very generous with telling us his plans, but this is not about FiOS. So, Chris, I don't know, Chris or Michelle, if you guys want to answer that one
I'll
question.
answer any of the questions. So
The question was just,
Yeah.
can you just give us a baseline understanding of relative to other geographies in the city, what kind of bandwidth is available in this?
yeah, so Harlem is on equal footing with any other neighborhood or any other borough in the city. As I was saying before, wherever we have not built the foundation of our fiber optic network here in Harlem yet, between the remainder of 2013 and 2014, we will be complete. I'll just spend a few seconds on it, but again, I don't want to make this all about Verizon. But our Verizon has some key switching centers, some key locations that provide service to Harlem, have actually been the key locations that have been providing service to Harlem for the last 100 years, from the former New York Telephone, the former 9X Bell Atlantic. We've already made the key investments to those locations. So our location at East 97th Street and 3rd Avenue, our location at 146th Street and Convent Avenue, 108th Street and Manhattan Avenue, when we go up to the Heights, 176th Street and Wadsworth, and up in Thayer Street. We've already made the critical investments to those locations to be the hubs for providing service. And we have been, over the last few years, building out from those locations, sort of radiating out all brand new fiber optic infrastructure up and down every major avenue here in Harlem and in Washington Heights and all the way up to Inwood, as well as all the other parts of Manhattan. As I said, wherever we're not today, we will be over the remainder of this year into 2014. And as we break away from this conversation, I'm happy to stay after this. If there are folks in specific apartment buildings, small business locations, community centers, and you want to talk about specific access and availability, I'm happy to have those more detailed conversations.
Wow.
and get back to you with any key questions as well. But I certainly don't want to dominate this conversation just being all about Verizon. Well, maybe I'm happy.
Maybe.
Well,
We're okay with that.
Actually, the point to be just made is that what I'm saying in some terms is that we've been investing, quite frankly, millions of dollars over the last couple of years in beginning this process, and we are committed to continuing to do that over the next so many years. So if you want us, we want you. And we want to extend our network into our apartment buildings, into your homes, into your small businesses, your community centers, large businesses, government buildings. We want to do that as fast as possible, because everything I just described doesn't matter if we don't have customers at the end of this network. So all of this baseline infrastructure, baseline foundation, unless I get it to customers and get people to use it, it's meaningless. So we want to get it to you as quickly as possible, and we'll, as I said, I can follow up on details when we close.
I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience, and I'm going to try to see if I can get a microphone down here. But I'm going to let you guys say just a couple of quick closing comments on this formal conversation, so we can just turn over the audience and open it up. We're going to do about 20 to 30 minutes of audience interaction, and then, boy, I can use a drink after this. Go ahead. So we're going to let them say a couple of closing remarks, and I will have our team with microphones acknowledge you. You will say whatever you have to say or have a question. I'm begging you to keep it short. All right, I've been an owner in New York for a long time, and when I talk with somebody, it's a long time. Let's keep it short. All right. So first of all, Bruce, you want to have a couple of closing comments before we turn it over to the audience? A couple of comments just on anything.
Yeah. Well, Verizon has absolutely made a commitment to ensuring that New York City is a gigabit city, and we've been working with them here actually since 2006. Because they get this vision of how we have to become a smart city. But as they said, we don't know that unless we get your participation. So it's very important that you are able to succinctly, like an elevator pitch, like you're trying to raise money from a VC, let us know what your vision is, because this is very much about participation.
Adam?
I just want to say what's going on in Harlem is pretty inspiring, and it's something that I've seen over the past 4 years with Digital Dumbo and Dumbo Brooklyn, which was a group of like-minded, creative individuals, people who knew technology, people who wanted to create something and connect with the community at large. And we're 4 years now. We have over, I think, 13,000 participants in our database, and we are in several different countries. So I know it's worth it, and I know it's possible. So anything that we can do or that you guys have questions on, just let me know.
Yeah, Clayton, I mean, I've certainly had enough opportunity here. I just appreciate I appreciate the opportunity to talk here. Happy to talk afterwards with whomever about subjects small and large. And Verizon is certainly committed to rewiring Harlem with fiber optics and happy to talk about it with anybody.
And I just want to say again to those people who are content creators that to be thinking about different platforms, different ways of delivering that content, and really focusing on IP as a delivery vehicle for you.
Great. Carl, yes, let's get the questions going. I get to answer questions too. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Hi, my name is Reggie Mabry. Probably up until about 3 years ago, I was probably one of the longest term, like, you know, how can I say, technology people in Harlem. I worked for the New York Public Library, Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture for 5 years. I was there when basically fiber was going from the New York Public, because of the New York Public Library, to 135th Street, to the Schomburg Center. I was also a tech manager for a law office that I worked there for 16 and a half years, where Verizon helped port from beginning of, I guess, 56 KB fractional.
I'm going to ask you to get to your question, sir.
T1. So what I'm just trying to say, Harlem has come a long way, right? And I think the real issue is, what are our needs? I think that the providers, whether it be Verizon, who have been an enormous job because they have been on the forefront, right? The discussion at some point has to shift to, what are the needs? She is saying IP. IP means Internet Protocol, right? And she's saying it like water. For us, we don't know what these terms are. You're talking about bandwidth and backbones and T1s and things like that. There has to be an educational movement in Harlem. We use gadgets, but we don't have education. So we do need partners to help educate the community on these terms, have workshops so that we could understand where this pipeline is going and what the needs are, so we can be better customers. Because
I get where you're going.
We don't know.
I get where you're going.
Got
And you make an excellent point.
Thank you.
This is partly why we are here.
Yep, sir.
And this will not be the last time we have this sort of gathering. We want everyone to participate, and we do need to break it down. You're absolutely right. We need to break it down. We're going to move to another question or comment. We have one in the back there.
Thank you. I'll make it short and sweet.
Okay.
I was the first DSL customer on your node.
Please
146
say
in
your
Contact.
name.
My name is Arnold Boatner.
Okay.
I'm with Community Board 9. I'm the second vice chair. I was the first DSL customer on your node in 1999 when you rolled out DSL in West Harlem. I know exactly where I live, 2 blocks from your 146th Street switching station. About a year and a half ago, Verizon came out on my block. I live on 147th Street, Borough Grand, Riverside. And they wrote hieroglyphics all up and down my block, apparently mapping out where you're going to come from the street to the homes. As of 2 weeks ago, went on your website, punched in 10031. Now let me put one more framework in this. West Harlem is an arts community. Huge amount of people that are in theater. I'm in media. So there's a huge arts community that's in West Harlem. But when you punch in 10031, and I'm not picking on, I don't think I'm picking on you, Verizon, because I like
right.
your product. I want your product, but it's not available. And it says it's not available in my zip code of 10031. So I'd like to know, I saw one of your guys. I actually hijacked one of your guys on the street. He was
Yep.
a Verizon, hey, when are you guys going to be putting in? And here's what he told me. He said, until we get enough, a critical mass of the apartment buildings to commit and give us right-of-way, we can't wire your single-family house. I live in a townhouse.
Let's stop you there. 'Cause
Thank you.
That's a great point. Do you want to respond at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can follow up with him and talk individually, but we are working to, what you saw as hieroglyphics painted on the street. That's a process so that utility companies don't damage things underground when they go to dig. So when we come out and paint, it's a signal that someone's about to dig up the street, whether it's Verizon, Con Edison, Time Warner, or somebody, so that process keeps us from damaging each other's networks. So that's what that meant. As I said, the investment to provide FiOS and the fiber optics out of Convent Avenue has already been made. I'd be happy to show it to you. And we are in the process of going up and down that entire neighborhood. So I can follow up with you in detail as to what our progress plans are for your specific block, and anybody else's here. because that is all going to happen. If it hasn't happened, it's going to happen, and I can certainly fill in the gaps as to when that is and what your expectations should be. And actually, because a lot of it comes down to private property discussions. So Verizon has the negotiation with the city to build in the public rights of way. So we can go underneath the streets, we can go into our own buildings, but when it comes to extending our network into apartment buildings and to individual homeowners and government buildings, we need to knock on the door, we need to get permission. We can't just waltz in and do whatever we want. So part of the logistical challenge is actually sort of a door-by-door private property conversation. So when you relay to me what people have said to you, that tells me that's sort of what they're trying to explain to you. But it doesn't mean we're not coming, and it doesn't mean we're not committed. So I can fill in the gaps. We can talk about that offline. Happy to do so.
Okay, guys in the back, how are we doing on being able to hear Congressman Rangel?
Yeah, this is Charlie Rangel. Can you hear me there? Yeah. Yeah, this is Charlie Rangel. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Well, I hear myself being repeated. But anyway, welcome to Harlem. I wish I could be with you, but we're voting tonight. This is a very, very exciting thing for me here in Washington and seeing how Silicon Valley can come into Harlem. You know, when I was a kid, Harlem was the Mecca for wealthy people and those who wanted to become wealthy. So we hit some hard times, so now we're coming back. And with your help, bringing the technology and the ambitions and the people, it's going to be such an exciting thing, and I'm so anxious to become a part of it, because I would want everyone to know that if you're looking for the valley, you're looking for the village, you're looking for Harlem, and we'll get things done. So welcome to welcome to 116th Street, and I hope you've had a good meeting and a great conference, and this is just the beginning.
Thank you, Charlie. All right.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
I don't even know whether you've heard anything because I'm talking to a screen. But maybe we can hook up by telephone.
My phone dropped right on him.
Okay, well, I'm very excited. I don't know whether you can hear me, but I think this is the beginning of a new era of technology and interesting young people, entrepreneurs, scholars, and I'm looking forward to working with you. This is a new day, and you young people are going to be there to open it so that our youth and those that follow us will be able to walk through. So I want you to sign up too for my newsletters at rangel.house.gov, and you can follow me on Twitter at CBRangel. And of course, Facebook is facebook.com/CBRangel. But I'll be in touch with you through this vehicle, and let's have some fun together. Thank you for coming to Harlem.
Thank you, Charlie.
Where's the microphone?
All right. Who's up? We've got a question somewhere? Oh, in the back there.
Yes, hi, my name is Sabine, and I'd like to know if there are any, by the panelists who are featured here in your organizations, there's going to be any initiatives or projects to help the people who've been in the community, the Blacks and the Latinos, with this push towards technology or more advanced technology here in the community, because that'd be very nice to see that they don't get left behind either, and that with education, the achievement gap be closed.
What are you
brought
envisioning?
together.
Why don't we let...
What are you envisioning?
Oh.
I envision, more community centers being built, rent not going through the roof as it is already, and things like that with these new initiatives.
Why don't we let Bruce kind of take a stab at that?
Well, historically, the way in which local people have had access to the technologies is through community technology centers. And actually, a company called Time Warner is committed as their commitment to bridging the digital divide and supporting digital literacy, building community technology centers throughout the city. And then there's also organizations like Perscolis who actually provide support for people who basically want to transition into IT jobs. And there's also been some grants committed by the West Harlem Local Development Corporation to support media literacy, the idea of helping young people get involved with how to develop apps as well as developing new media. Within urban cyberspace, we have an initiative that's focused on developing telework centers, actually for-profit social ventures that are focused on helping people gain digital literacy, but from the context of developing a digital skill set where you can then carry out work online. So you can do that either over the internet, over a tablet, or on your phone. So our particular focus is not simply educating people to be consumers, but educating people so that they can also be members of the digital economy and use that to benefit their lives.
And I would just add to that, from this conversation, we certainly, and back to this gentleman's comments here, I certainly want to talk to my colleagues here from the Harlem Business Alliance and the gentleman from the HarlemGarage and others like them to see what we can do at these incubator locations in helping new businesses get started here in Harlem, and what we can do to support them at those locations as they're working just to get their feet off the ground, getting businesses incorporated for the first time, and then as they leave those central locations, those incubators or those nesting programs, and get ready to set their own feet up, we want to help go with them and provide what we can do to help them get off the ground and start a new business and do what we can do as a technology company to help support that. So that's certainly our commitment from this conversation, and certainly as part of the greater context of what we're looking to do.
Oh man,
so
that's a beautiful outcome. Is Simeon here still? What do you think about that, Simeon? I mean, we're hearing a lot of needs here.
I do think that that's such a critical question. I really appreciate the fact that you asked it, and I hope that you heard a little bit earlier in the comments that I made how important it is for us to think about this across a broad variety of, whether it's income scales or however you want to describe it, right? Because at the end of the day, our approach and the way that we've been thinking about it in our office, the way that the council member has, really kind of attacked this, is to think about it from an ecological perspective, right? So to think about this not just in terms of high-tech jobs or, but to think about what we can do across a broad spectrum, working in a number of different areas too, right? So both in terms of jobs, but then also in terms of, you mentioned education, right? We've got wonderful assets in this community. We've got City College, where I think that there's actually quite a bit of interest in, doing some more of this kind of work. We've got wonderful community organizations. I think I see Bozo over there, kind of in the lights. So we've got great community organizations. We've got terrific assets in this community. The trick is, how do we leverage all those assets in an ecological approach to make sure that everybody benefits, right? And then I kind of see our job in government to kind of hold our friends and the private sector accountable to ensuring that when those jobs are created and when we get other resources, when those jobs are created, we get other resources, that those jobs go to folks that have been in this community and have helped to build this community and have stayed in this community even in the times when we didn't have Red Rooster and all that great stuff.
Thank you, Simeon. We got some questions on the side too. By the way, I do want to mention that we have a good friend that we met recently from Bloomberg's office. Jeremy, if you can raise your hand. So Jeremy right there helped us out with this event as well. So we thank Bloomberg and his staff. So we had a question on this side of the room.
Hi, my name is Jonelle Derrick. This question is for Verizon. There used to be a Verizon store on 125th Street that had a really cool technology facility upstairs where they would educate elderly people and people that were just interested in technology. What happened to that? And are you guys going to bring something like that back?
Was that a Verizon wireless store?
No, it was a wireline. I don't know the history of. I certainly remember its existence. I don't know the history of the closing, but certainly my comments before. We are looking for new ways to do the same sort of thing, and certainly want to reach out to the key locations in the community to be able to do that. So whether it's as I commented before, working on small business startups, or whether it's helping other parts of the community with other different aspects of technology. We have lots of different ways we can do that, whether we actually have an actual storefront, or that we come to locations, already existing community center locations here in Harlem. We can do it in many different ways. So if you're certainly representing of something like that, we're happy to follow up with you and talk about that, how we can do that. Okay.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it going. I'm going to take 5 more questions. 5 questions. So we're on the countdown. Question 5.
Hello, my name is Derek Coy, and you'd mentioned the theme tonight is to empower Harlem, and I wanted to know, with the expansion of Gigabit in Harlem, what is that going to do to create jobs, and is there a guarantee to make sure that those jobs will go to people in the communities and Harlem residents?
Excellent question. Adam, why don't you start? You had some experience with Dumbo, so you can tell a little bit about that.
So I think that incubating businesses is wildly important. At Carrot Creative, we incubate a business a year. Right now, we are working with a farm program called Farmigo, where we take farmers from upstate New York and bring local produce to New York City. Our experience in Brooklyn and the experiences with the companies we work with, whether it be at shared workspaces or companies like ours that incubate certain companies, they make the connections within the community, and they remember the community when they are successful. So several companies within Dumbo were acquired by Facebook in the past few years, and they've since either come back to Dumbo to source work from creative agencies, technology agencies, etc., or they've come back to start again in Brooklyn once they've seen their acquisition through. So based off experience, just with Brooklyn alone, we've seen a very loyal community, and that starts with community events and hosting things like this and empowering the people to use each other as resources to either further themselves, further their businesses, and further their knowledge of how technology could be used in their resources in trying to push themselves and their companies forward.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. I would just add that if you look at what Google Fiber has been doing and laying out fiber and starting gigabit neighborhoods and communities. In one city, I think it was Chattanooga, that they worked on, as a result of the infrastructure, Amazon moved a department there, hired 3,700 people. So speed matters to business. Speed matters to business. So that's how you start to empower a community. Question where, Carl? Okay.
Hi, I'll keep it brief. I have a quick question. I mean, having gigabit Ethernet is wonderful, but let's be frank, 99% of the people don't need a gigabit. 20 to 50 megabits is fine. What are you doing to keep it affordable so that people can get this in their homes, people who may not be content creators but do have young families and who want to be able to keep their children, give them the edge? I mean, FiOS is notorious for less than honest pricing. So what are you doing to counteract that?
Again, this is not about FiOS or Verizon.
Okay.
I want to repeat that. We are not here to attack.
But they are the only provider of gigabit, so it's
That's not
kind of
true.
is about them a little bit.
That's not true.
Yeah, so I don't know how to respond to your notorious pricing comment. I really don't. So we could talk offline. You'd have to give me a little more specificity than just a general statement like that. To your point about pricing, so we talked about, we've been talking tonight about the high end of broadband and how speeds will rise. But we do today, and we will into the future, have an array of speeds, because certainly a gigabit speed is not necessary for all things or for all people. So we have quite relative speeds in the marketplace and pricing in the marketplace. And we've had very consistent offers at all ranges of the spectrum as far as speed and pricing. And we'll continue to do so because we expect that there will always be a variance in the market, and we have to provide products along those lines to meet everybody's needs, not certainly just on the high end. We certainly, for this conversation, we want to talk about that the investment here is just as good as it is anywhere. And my commitment to you, my statements to you, is that it certainly is and that it will be. But for the conversation at the other end, as far as folks that aren't necessarily going to need that today or in the future, those prices and those service offerings are available today and will certainly be part of the marketplace tomorrow as well. They'll need to be.
Great, great. We have a question on this side of the room.
Yes, my name is Bob Ponce. I'm from WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. I'm pleased to say that I've been talking to Bruce about technology stuff since before either of us had gray hair. I think this has been a tremendous panel, and I just think it's important that we make sure that we keep the scope of what we're looking to do large, because it's not so much about the technology, it's about what the technology enables. So for artists, it means a way of making a living where you can transport your product anywhere in the world. That's what it means. It doesn't mean, gigabit versus other speeds. It means, a way to make a living. So I think we need to look at how we create ecosystems, because for this to work, we need sustainability. We need the additional bandwidth to create jobs that you can make money on a regular basis and afford to continue to live here. And so all the comments that were made from needing education, she mentioned IP. IP for artists means intellectual property. So we have to be careful about the words that we use when we're talking to different people. We have a tendency, those who have been steeped in the technology, to talk technology, and there are some people who are not steeped in the technology, and for them there's a fear. But I know that there's hope, because I just heard Charlie Rangel tell us to hit him up on his Twitter account. So, so if our esteemed legislator can make the adjustments, we all can, but it means that people over a certain age, we have to help translate for them.
I appreciate it.
And I appreciate that too. I think
Great comment, bro.
I think that we were told this was kind of a tech-savvy group, and so, but I appreciate your kind of level setting, because, and the big takeaway I'm taking away from this, and we're taking away at Verizon, is the need to go back to an education kind of mindset. I think for this conversation, we were told to kind of talk about future visions, but I think what I'm hearing is that there still needs to be kind of like, let's get to some level of education as to where we are. I think you were mentioning that earlier, maybe opening these, looking at whether or not these technology centers are good. So I appreciate your comment.
All right, well, now we're going to have lots of time after this. We got drinks and food and stuff like that, and we want to definitely spend some time, talking with each other. So I'm going to try to really boil this down to 2 questions. Carl, you pick the next one.
I want Dr.
Okay, my name is Marlon Jenkins. I am president for New Lose Networks, a company that's looking at bridging the digital divide in a very specific and direct way. The thing that I'm recognizing here, and I've always had this kind of concern about the higher the speed you go, the issue is that for many families who can't afford to go this high or anywhere near that high, there becomes this plateau, the lowest common denominator. And the question I ask for all of you is, when you talk about gigabit speed, that means you're typically talking about content being produced in that way. But the problem is, what happens when you have a majority, or even less than a majority, let's say 20% of the population, who do connect to the internet, but they're connecting at 5 megabit speeds? So how do you ensure that, even though they do have, at some point, let's say they all get broadband in some way, but that's this very, very low speed, and everyone else is at 300 megabits or a gigabit, how do you ensure that you're not leaving them behind? That's the biggest concern that I have about gigabit internet right now.
All right, so we're going to start with Bruce, and then get the next question lined up, Carl.
Well, I think the idea of that is having the type of relevant applications that meet the needs of those people who are platformed at that speed. The idea of a gigabit internet isn't that everybody's going to be using gigabits. The idea is that Harlem Hospital has it for teleradiology or for virtual surgery, but then again, someone who just needs something that's non-mission critical, like email, can still do email, but then again, when the kids come home and want to do their high bandwidth activity around schools, so it's not a person that you need to think about. The idea is, how do we platform a city, an area on these technologies, especially when you start having to build smart and green buildings and have electric cars that will be on the internet. You'll need lots of bandwidth to meet lots of simultaneous needs. So basically, the idea is to think of it's channelized. It's you have the bandwidth you need, and you're using your phone, talking to your friend, and at the museum, they're able to do what they're doing with it. At the hospital, they're able to get that, teleradiological information so they can save this person's life. So that's how it works when it's ubiquitous. It's all on demand, and it's happening at the same time, all the time. And we all can get it when we need it, at the price we can afford, and with the applications that make sense to us. In a hyper-connected world, applications are now tailored to your needs.
All right. Everybody get that? All right. We have one more question here? All right, great. We're going to have one more question, last question.
Well, I want to recognize Dr. Regina.
Oh, okay, hold on a second.
Silicon Barrio.
Okay, we have a recognition
Dr.
here.
Falou, please stand and introduce yourself. And
Good evening. I'm Dr. Falou. We introduced Silicon Barrio since 1988, and we're training women and children mostly since that time, still to the present. So that component of education and training is key because there is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of possibilities of training people to grab jobs and also to start businesses. I just distributed to you a flyer for July 18 where we're inviting people to either create businesses but also nonprofits or cooperative. But my question is, anybody in the audience or the speakers, we need funds to establish the structure of the computers. We have the space. We have 2 buildings here in El Barrio. But we need the money to establish more computers to allow people to come, not only over there inside, but from their own homes, using online education and virtual. That would be terrific if we could do that because so many thousands of people can benefit, get the training, and develop businesses and grab a job. So I would like to hear where is the money? Where are some funds that we can
Okay, somebody break out the checkbook. Crowdfunding, we hear. So somebody network with her and talk to her after this about that. Carl's got one more. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Simran Noor. I'm with the Center for Social Inclusion, and I wanted to ask, I came in a little late, so I apologize, but I wanted to ask 2 questions. One was about community ownership models, because a lot of folks are concerned about jobs and how community folks are going to be able to benefit. So, and one way that we've seen through our research is that community scale models are one way to actually ensure that that happens, and that the networks are responsive to folks that live in the neighborhoods. And my other question is, how do we, I think to Bruce's point, catalyze community anchor institutions as hubs for internet that can then, serve the broader community? So those are my 2 questions. Thanks.
Okay.
So I think I spoke to the second half a little bit already. So Verizon is very much interested in community hubs and locations, particularly business incubators, and what we can do to help new business startups. So again, I mentioned a few folks representing such places that are here in the audience. So we'll be working with them, certainly out of this conversation. And I go back to some earlier comments about the way that we're building our networks and investing in our networks that, again, are not geographic specific for their quality and what they have to offer. That you can be at any location in this city, in any neighborhood, in any borough, and set up shop, and you'll be able to get the benefit of what we're working to provide. And it will not be exclusive that you have to be paying the highest rent in the most exclusive location to be able to get the best of telecommunication service. So I look at that as an equalizer, and it begins to change over the next 5 years and 10 years as neighborhoods evolve and develop. That telecommunication networks will not be something that drives investment to one location or another. It'll be a democratizing effect that you can build upon that anywhere. Whether it's here in Harlem, whether it's up in Washington Heights, whether it's in Inwood, or anywhere else in Manhattan or the other 5 boroughs, that what we're providing as far as service and infrastructure will be the basis or the foundation from what others can build upon as far as business ideas and investment.
And I think technology is one side of it and people are the other side. So when you talk about community scaling, Dumbo was it had very low rents, a lot of artist lofts, a lot of empty warehouses, and so the tech community started to flock to it. And once we did that, and once we started Digital Dumbo, which was in a bar, it was a 45-minute open bar, and just brought like-minded individuals together just to talk. And that grew into a monthly meetup that's over 5,000 attendees. So once we started getting that size, there was a committee that was in charge of what the vision of that is. And that vision was to bring in bigger brands, to bring in people who were going to invest money, attract talent. And when that talent was started to be attracted, we had the likes of Google, Microsoft, et cetera, come, and they would start to talk to people about jobs, talk to people about investments, talk to people how they can further their businesses in that community. So that's where I think you begin to see scale, and then you see that scale not only stay within that community, but branch out to the other 5 boroughs as the accessibility is everywhere.
And that's what this is about. We're looking to scale. We're looking to get your friends and family involved. We want to galvanize this community. Simeon, did you get a lot of information tonight? Are you going to be able to take back to
Yes, the thing that's so helpful for us, there's a lot of conversation tonight about education, right? And in the same way that the congressman had to be educated about setting up a Twitter account, we're going through that process for our elected officials, here at Harlem. And it is very beneficial, I think, for these kinds of conversations to happen, but not just happen tonight, not just happen one time, but for us to think about how we do it in a sustained way and have a sustained dialogue. There are a number of things that are happening, and I can kind of, the good thing about working in an elected space is that you get a chance to kind of see a little bit of a bird's eye view of some of the things that are happening in our community. There are a lot of things that are happening, and I think we can all kind of feel some of it, in a very tangible way. We have got to move quickly to be able to capitalize on it. The folks from Verizon are right, and they're coming here as quickly as they are, and they're doing it all over the city. Then that means that we've got to take advantage of our competitive position where we are locationally and all that kind of stuff. And so I really, and this is what we kind of talked about in advance of this, I'm looking to kind of get, some kind of concrete document that we can walk away with, right? That describes what you and you and you and you and you need to think about if you were going to start a business, or if you have a business, or if you work for a larger business, what it would take for those businesses to come here and plant and tap down roots here in Harlem. That's what we're looking for. And we're looking to get educated about what those needs are. If we can accomplish that, I think that'll put us light years ahead of where we need to be.
Thank you, Simeon. And I want to take this time to quickly thank just a few people again. Thank the host committee. By the way, Aunt Jones, who does our entertainment, is here. We're very happy to see him. So a lot of, and for those of you who are networking tonight, there's a lot of great people in this place, and I mean, everyone's great. A good friend of mine, Doug Holloway, who runs IO Media, is here. I would encourage you to meet him. He's a great man. But most importantly, I want to thank these panelists. They took the time out of their very busy schedules to really come out here and hear from you, share their ideas. The history that Chris has is incredible. Obviously, we know everybody loves Bruce, Adam and Michelle. It was a phenomenal group of people that we had tonight.